And we're live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Toby Eunice of a Gypsy Kiss, and we'd like to thank you for joining this evening on our what we'll call a whiteboard discussion on the Home of Brown, as it relates to the poem that Forrest Fenn wrote into his first memoir, The Thrill of the Chase, where he, in that poem, tells us how we can find his treasure, the one that he hid in the mountains north of Santa Fe. I'd like to introduce a couple of guests. Well, not guests, they're friends that are going to join me tonight. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about welcome. There's all three of our moderators are here. Joel, Jimmy Fast, and Man in the Barn. Thanks for joining us this evening. We truly appreciate it. What I want to do tonight is I'm going to start by I want this to be an open discussion. At the same time, I don't want anyone feeling like this is all about sharing your solutions for the poem, especially when it comes to the Home of Brown. So the way that we're gonna start this tonight is that I'm gonna ask Mike to introduce himself. Most of you know him, but for those folks that see this video at a later time, I'd like them to know him as well. And then I'd like Mike to express his opinions on the Home of Brown, and we'll do that in just a minute. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce my partner, who's at her home with her family in Rio Rancho, Shelley Carney. You know her from our Gypsy's Kiss programming. And as soon as Mike has completed his present or his short introduction to his kind of feelings about the Home of Brown, I'm going to ask Shelley to do the same thing. And then I'll give you mine. And then what we'd like to do is open it up to your comments. And remember, and I can't reach the chat window from here, so I'm gonna go to the chat window and I'm gonna do this. So if I wanted to reach Mike, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna enter an @ sign, and then I'm gonna start by entering Mike's screen name, which is Kyle Lazar's, and that'll start a sentence for me that I can reach him that says, "Hi, Mike." So what I'm looking for is that as you see other people's commentary, let them know what you think about what they're saying. And what's doxed? I don't know what that is, Coach. What does that mean? Is that good or bad? And let them know what you think about what they're saying. And while we're talking, each of us is going to pull some of your commentary out of the chat and start addressing it. We're gonna make this is what we refer to as it's gonna be a short chat tonight. We're going to keep it to an hour because we're trying it out, see how it works out for everybody. The video, of course, will be up once YouTube finishes processing it. And Mary Green, because you can't see the live stream of the chat, I've arranged so that I've got fix the technology so that you can see the live chat on the screen, and it will be incorporated into the finished video. So I did that because Mary Green asked. How about that? Okay, so you guys know me. Let me introduce Mike Cowling. Mike, please tell the folks that don't know who you are about your YouTube channel, a little bit about the competition that you're holding right now, and then we'd like to hear your thoughts on the Home of Brown.
Okay, so real quick, my name is Mike Cowling. I have a YouTube channel under Kyle Lasers or Kyle Lazar's. I accept either answer. Either one is okay. I do a lot of videos on Forrest Fenn, but also other treasure hunts. I've opened it up to all kinds of treasure hunts. Yeah. Some of the older ones that have already finished, and a lot of the ones that are still active. So thanks, Toby and Shelley, for having me on. It's good to talk about Forrest Fenn. Before I get into the Home of Brown, I just want to mention that I did create a puzzle of my own. I call it Kyle Lazar's Grand Adventure, and it's a series of YouTube videos that are puzzles. And what I'm giving away, what the prizes are 7 different treasure hunting books, including the 3 Forrest Fenn books, Thrill the Chase, Once Upon a While, and Too Far to Walk. So if anybody is interested, and the way I look at it is this: if you can't solve my puzzles, I really don't know if you can solve Forrest Fenn's poem. My puzzles are a lot easier. So if anybody's worried, and the other thing is if anybody's worried that they're not good at puzzles or ciphers or whatever I've created, I'm going to do a random drawing of everybody that participates, and that person will be able to pick any of the 7 books that they want to. So thanks for having me on, Toby and Shelley. And Home of Brown, for anybody that's watched my videos, you know that when it comes to Forrest Fenn, there's only 2 things I go to, and that's the Thrill of the Chase book, and that's the poem. I don't put much credence into the scrapbooks or some of the other things, or some of the outside influences that a lot of people do. So when it comes to Homer Brown, I look in the poem and I look in the Thrill of the Chase. And one thing I notice is that he uses the word brown a couple times, 6 times to be exact, in the book. And he's always describing the color brown. I mean, there's brown gravy, there's a brown bag, there's a brown color, brown paper sack. So because that brown is capitalized in the poem, there's a capital B. I don't think he's referencing a color because brown in Thrill of the Chase is not capitalized. So I know that's contrary to what a lot of people think, but for myself, because it's capital, we know it's a capital B, we know it's a proper noun. We know it may refer to a person, place, or thing. And that's my take on it, kind of in a nutshell. Is I don't think it has anything to do with the color, and maybe that's a hint that Forrest was giving us by using the color brown in the book, and it's not capitalized. So that's what I got for Homer Brown.
Very well done. Very nice. Different from ours, and just as credible. So I know that we work together, and that I think people assume that because we work together, our thinking is alike. But you and I both know that that we don't think exactly alike. That you have had your thoughts on the matter, and you've done your own research. So why don't we tell the folks what you think about the Homer Brown?
All right, thank you, Toby. So what I would like to do is a little exercise with you. I would like everybody to participate mentally, but I want you to answer these things as I say them. So I'm going to
What,
say some words,
when you say
and I
you, or do you mean me? I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. When you say
yes,
you,
Toby, you.
oh, oh, geez,
I
okay.
want everybody to listen and think about this, but I want you to be the one to answer. Okay,
Uh,
just to set an example, and because I picked these things knowing you. So I'm going to say some words, and I want you to listen and notice what comes into your mind as I say them. Okay.
okay.
Father, coach, chalkboard, broom, martini. Now, did particular people come to mind?
Uh, when you said each of those words, one person or different persons for each one?
Different people, or it could have been the same person,
Yeah.
but different
So
people.
so father, of course. The first thing that came to mind was my own father. Chalkboard. I can only think of Brother Godfrey, who was a Christian brother who taught history, economics at St. Michael's High School, but he loved the chalkboard. He was a very visual person. The broom, I think of my grandmother because she always seemed to be scurrying around the kitchen with a broom, um, even when it didn't need cleaning.
Sweeping. Hmm.
When you say coach, I think of my assistant coach. We did 17 years of girls soccer together. His name was Dennis Sixby. His name is Dennis Sixby, and he was the best. He was a really good coach, and he had the opportunity to be his establish his own team, and he just wanted to be an assistant coach on my team, and so his daughter was on the team, as was mine, and we coached together for a really long time over 3 different daughters. So, and what was the last one?
Martini.
Martini. I think of your program, the softer side, because we decided to use that as the symbol for the logo. But when somebody says martini before that, my first reaction was the big deal that it was in Washington, D.C., where we used to talk about a 3 martini lunch, that it couldn't be more than a 3 martini lunch because you were useless the rest of the afternoon. So that's what I
All
was
right,
thinking.
so thank you. You proved my point that not only did a particular person come to mind, but you also envisioned them in a place and a
Yeah.
time. So, after studying literary devices, which I wanted to do because we had done that show where we used the information that Clayton Watson had sent us
Hmm.
about the different literary devices that you would use in a riddle poem, and I looked at each one of those and I tried to decide if if Home of Brown could be uh, referring to something else in a way that was metonymy or synecdoche or any of those. And what I came up with is that Brown is capitalized because when Fenn thinks of Brown, he thinks of Eric Sloane. I picture them, I visualize them together, finding pigment for the color brown because he used it so frequently in his painting, and because I'm sure that Fenn and Eric like to do things together. And while Eric's gathering his pigments, Fenn could be wandering around looking for arrowheads or fishing spots. So so a special place could include a person, a place, and a time. And that's why I think the home of brown is, as we have discussed, a lignite deposit where you could gather pigment for paint.
Mm. Well, although we probably have come to the same conclusion, the road that gets you to that conclusion is far more elegant than mine. Mine's beating on the ground with a geology pick. So, Mike, what do you think about what Shelley said?
Well, my question would be, if I read The Thrill of the Chase and I don't know who Eric Sloane is, I know he's mentioned in the book, but if I don't know that brown is a color or that him and Forrest have some kind of relationship, is that specialized knowledge in your opinion or no?
So, Shelley, do you want to address that? Do you want to address what Mike said, or shall I take it?
No, why don't you take it?
All right. So, we struggle with the specialized knowledge quotation all the time. And we feel like although Fenn didn't intend that you already have specialized knowledge, the simple fact of the matter is, I think we can all agree that you can't decipher the poem without acquiring additional knowledge. You were right. He said you could do it with a poem and a map, but the likelihood of you doing it with a poem and a map and not acquiring some new knowledge, or at least imagining the existence of that knowledge, would be very, very difficult. So I think we have probably like you, we trust the book and we trust the poem. And we think that the specialized knowledge associated with making, imagining things like Shelley suggested, requires the acquisition of the specialized knowledge after you've interpreted the poem and the book. But I like your thinking there. So what do you do? I mean, how do you avoid not learning stuff, not having to learn stuff in order to interpret the poem?
Well, I try and keep it as simple as possible. Some people might think too simple, but I don't think I've got to read any of the other books that Forrest Fenn has put out. And I don't think, other than maybe Too Far to Walk, but I don't think I've also got to read any of the other books that are in The Thrill of the Chase. I just try and go with what's in the poem and because he said there's hints in the book, which we know. So how would he try and convey those hints to us that help with the clues?
Right.
That's how I try and read the book. And I'm trying not to use anything other than the book. And I might be wrong. It may be that there's something else that's required.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I agree with you that it's not it's interesting because I own literally now that I owned some of the books that he mentions early, and I think it was the first chapter. Those were just part of my library. Since then, I've acquired Flywater and Robert Redford's book and 80, Eric Sloane's book, et cetera, et cetera. And I read them, but like you, I wasn't certain that there was anything in them that would help me necessarily. Now, the paragraph that Sloane writes about brown, the color brown, and that in his book 80, and that Fenn incorporates into verbatim his book 80, that's what led me towards that we may be dealing with the color here. And I'll talk about that as I describe my solution for all of this. But I think we agree that it's the poem, it's the book, and Shelley and I have a rule, and I'm almost embarrassed to say it because it could be interpreted very negatively. But the rule is Forrest Fenn died in December of 2010 rule. And so you have to question, we always question, what's the value of anything that came after that? If he had died in December of 2010, there would have been no additional books. There would have been no additional interviews. There would have been no map of the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains didn't actually come up until 2013. So I think focusing on the book and focusing on the poem. You said you had counted the number of times Brown had been mentioned in the book?
Yes, that's correct. It's actually in the book 6 times. The
Oh,
word brown is in the book 6 times.
I hadn't counted. I do have a Word doc, a dot
Right.
doc transcription of the book. I just never counted Brown, so that's interesting. Okay, so let me. I probably said this enough times that people already know what my definition of the home of Brown is, and it's all based on something that Shelley described earlier, and that is. I believe that Fenn had a very strong relationship, a very father-son like relationship with Eric Sloane. They were different enough in age by 25 years that it could have felt that way anyway. I feel that when Fenn refers to don't go to a place where a 79 or 80-year-old man couldn't go, I honestly believe that he's referring to Eric Sloane when he uses that line. So in Eric Sloane's book, because of his and I believe that the home of Brown, the uppercase B in Brown, is a reflection of his admiration and respect for Sloane, and that goes back to, as I said, in Sloane's last book, AD, he has a paragraph where he talks about the color brown and how he used it in his paintings, especially the color Van Dyke brown. That led me to a search of how Van Dyke Brown was created. And Van Dyke Brown was originally, when it was first created way back in the era of the Dutch masters, basically, it had an oil base, and it had come from lignite, which is a form of rock that is very dense with oil, with a very light but crude oil. And so I started, attacking that. And the nice thing about that is one of the things that I always tell you folks is that you have to be able not only to envision what your solution to the clue is, but you have to be able to pinpoint it. Otherwise, you don't know where to go and how to get there and where to go from there. So the nice thing about having our definition of the home of Brown as a lignite deposit is we can point to lignite deposits associated with most of our solutions in northern New Mexico. So it gets us to that second clue. So, okay. So those are our opinions on the matter. They're very different from one another, as you've heard. What I'd like to hear is, your folks' ideas on what you think the home of Brown might be. You don't have to give a specific solution. And I know that I can see the screen scrolling up really fast, so you're having a great conversation out there, and we really appreciate you doing that tonight. So, if you have any questions for us, please precede the question with the @ sign, and then use either Cal Lazar's or a Gypsy's Kiss. And Shelley, how did you sign on? Oh, you know what, Shelley, you're muted. Was that intentional? Oh, okay. So Shelley, who did you sign on as tonight?
I'm using my phone, so I should be Shelley Carney.
Okay, so if you want to send an @ sign message to Shelley, started with @ sign Shell, because I'm using a Gypsy's Kiss tonight. Mike is using Cal Lazar's. What?
Let me check.
Okay.
I'm signed on as a Gypsy's Kiss, but let me just switch it out. I'll just do that.
I don't want you to leave, because you're going to have to. I think you're going to have to leave the.
No, I'll just switch on my screen.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I hope so. I don't want you to.
And I just want to mention real quick that somebody said the word brown is in the book 7 times. That's because the 7th instance is in the poem. So we know it's in the poem in the book. The other 6 times where he mentions the word brown.
Okay.
Just wanted to clarify. That's all.
All right. Now what you're causing me to do is now I've got to go open up my copy, and I'm going to have to look at it while you guys are talking. Hold on a sec. So, again, if anybody has any questions for any of us, and maybe they all do, maybe I need to scroll up here a little bit. Hang on just a sec. Let me do this, because now you got my curiosity up. Now, go ahead, Mike, while I'm doing this.
Oh, okay. So I'm just looking through the chat, and somebody mentioned that rust is in the book, which could be a synonym for brown. So if we get into synonyms, that's true. There could be that could be a way he's trying to convey hints in the book as well.
Yeah.
I haven't actually gone through to find out how many of those are in there. And then the other thing that we need to touch on is that even if we figure out what brown is, we still need to find out what the home of brown is. And could there be several? I mean, if this is a person, I don't know how many people think it's a person, but if I just pick James Brown out of the air for an example, if James Brown is the Brown, where is his home? Is it where he's buried?
Right.
Is it where he was born? Is it where he lived most of his life? Even if you figure out what Brown is, then we've got to figure out what the home is.
And again, that's a conversation that we believe has to end up with a very specific point. It's been mentioned. Where is Bill in tonight? Bill Gorman, are you here?
I think I saw him in there.
He's talking about. He referred to Beaver as the home of Brown, and the problem with that is A, Beaver are on the move, and B, they live in areas that don't have specific points. Now, on the other hand, if you looked at it from the perspective of where a beaver, what do they call? They don't call them dens. What do they call them?
Dams.
Dens. What do beavers build? They live and people get mad because they mess up streams. Is there a name for that?
I thought it was just a dam, a beaver dam.
All right.
Could be wrong.
So one of the solutions that my son came up with as we had this conversation is he got to the brown beaver at some point, and then he said, well, the home is where they build those places in streams that block up the streams, with their beaver wood, which I thought was a pretty interesting little thing. I think the challenge, of course, is they're not there forever. They're certainly not going to be there for 100 years, much less 1,000. So, okay, Mike M. Toby, how could a kid figure out lignite? Mike, I don't think a kid could figure out lignite, but I don't think it was intended. The book, as it is written, is not intended for a kid. It is written. If you look at the stories that are written, it's intended for I was going to say thinking adult but then it sounds like that kids don't think. I don't think the book, the clues, the poem were meant for a kid. I think you can have a kid go out with you and enjoy it, but I don't think it was intended for them. Mike, so I'm going to address some of these questions that are coming directly to me. Mike M. asked, Home of Brown must be a very specific spot, not just the altitude where lignite exists. That's correct, Mike. We believe the put in below the Home of Brown is very distinctive, and that the Home of Brown gets you to the next point at which, we call them shells and sticks. The Home of Brown, the put in below the Home of Brown is a shell, and it should be very recognizable because you're going to take a stick from there. Joel Lewicki asks, Calazars, you got one. Which two states do you believe the chest is in?
I've always been partial to New Mexico. Just recently, I've started looking up north to Glacier National Park, as anybody that watches my vlog knows. But I've always been partial to New Mexico. I think it makes sense about the mountains north of Santa Fe. So if my gut feeling is that it's in New Mexico.
Yeah. Joel Lewicki asks me, are there things in the book that could be interpreted as brown without Fenn using the actual color? I think there are, Joel. I think there's one of the aberrations is him sliding down, I think it's a rail or stairs, something like that, when he's trying to escape school, and it leaves a brown... I don't know if he refers to it as brown. He might refers to it as...
He does. Rusty brown color.
Yeah, rusty brown string. So, yeah, I think those have to be incorporated into your thinking, Joel. Let's see. Fossil Man, AGK. So, burnt umber is made by cooking rust, iron oxide, taking the brown one out of the oven. So, Home of Brown might be a brown rusting. Yeah, that's, I think, Fossil Man, that's definitely a possibility. Brian Eagle, listen, if it wasn't for you, I want you to know that we wouldn't be doing this tonight in this format. We're using Zoom to produce the video, and then I'm using OBS to get that streamed to YouTube Live, and I did that based on all the information that you started providing me at the beginning of this week, and I want you to know how much we appreciate it, because we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for your motivation and inspiration and information. So we're very, very grateful for that. We're going to do more of these. I just wanted to say thank you very much for helping us get to this point. So you've got another one, Mike. It's Brian Eagle. He says, I still like the try the wheel. You found it fits because the enchanted circle hits Cimarron. What do you think about that?
The try the wheel was one of my videos I did quite a while ago about the word that is key. With 166 words in a poem, you can manipulate that poem in a lot of ways, and you're going to see a lot of words and a lot of what looks like intentional messages. But since then, I've changed my thinking. I don't think "try the wheel" is an intentional message that Forrest Fenn put in the poem. So, at one time, I did just because it looks it's very enticing. I mean, try the wheel. There's Wheeler Peak. There's a lot of things and you can make fit in your search area. But with some of the other messages that people have pulled out, I really think it's coincidence at this point.
Oh, Shelley, I didn't realize that, but you're also a moderator. Yeah. And you're still off. Okay, so guys, if you have any questions for Shelley, you can do @Shelley Carney. It'll come up with Shelley Carney Productions. So stay with us. Thank you for that. Alan K. Shelley, you got that one? You want to give that to Mike?
What, the Russians?
Yeah. Did you read it? I haven't read it.
It's
Oh,
just
I see.
funny.
Okay.
It's
All right.
funny.
All right.
Oh, now I see it. I didn't see it at first. Now I see it. Right. I got it.
Let's see. I just bumped up. Let's see. Let's scroll down a little bit. So it's amazing how quickly this screen is filling up, you guys. You really do have a lot of ideas on it. I'm actually kind of pleased that we'll be able to collect all this data on this screen when the video goes live as a video. So this is an amazing amount of information. I hope it helps everybody out. So
Mike M says, Forrest Fenn said something like, if I told you where the home of Brown is, I'm telling you exactly where to go. That's why I think home of Brown isn't lignite, which is everywhere, but something else. How do you narrow lignite?
Is that for me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So who was that? I didn't get his name. I'm sorry.
Mike.
Mike. Oh, okay. So Mike, there are at least 8 viable locations for our definition of warm water salt in the state of New Mexico. And as we said in our show, I think it was 2 weeks ago, every one of those has to be tested as a solution. So yes, while there are lignite deposits, and what I said in that show is, although there are 8 possible locations for warm water salt in the state of New Mexico, only one of them is correct. So by that kind of rule, what follows is, although there are many lignite deposits in the state of New Mexico, only one of them is going to be correct in the context of how you've gotten to that clue. There only is one correct warm water salt. There is only one correct canyon down. There's only one correct put in below the Homa Brown. And that if that's the lignite deposit, there's no guarantees, of course, that it is. But there can be, Forrest also said there are, I don't know, thousands, millions of warm waters in the Rocky Mountains. You just have to be the right one. This is true for every clue. I think we calculated that for every solution you have through the 9 clues, there are 362,864 possibilities. And so you have to have the right one. You have to have the right warm water salt, the right canyon, the right put in, and the right Homa Brown. And in our case, it has to be the correct lignite deposit. What do we got, Shell?
There's several people talking about a wheel. I don't know where the wheel came from or what the whole wheel thing is. Does one of you guys know more about the wheel?
Mike addressed it because he played with it. Why don't you talk a little bit about it, Mike, please?
If what they're referring to is try the wheel, it's a message that I found in the poem. It's not my original idea, just so everybody knows. It's an idea that was out there floating around between some of the longtime searchers. If you take the key word as the word treasures, just to go through it real quick, which you figure out from the first stanza because treasures is 9 letters. It's the longest word in the poem. If you use the word treasures in place of the word it, starting in the second stanza, if you read it a certain way, which is a little bit of a stretch, you can spell the word treasures down the poem crossword style. And when you do that, you see the message that says try the wheel. There is a WY at the end of that, which could be Wyoming, might not be, but I think it's coincidence. I think it really is. There's so many words in that poem that you can do a lot of things like that to find messages. I'm assuming that's a solution you guys dismissed as soon as you heard it, Toby and Shelley.
Well, we saw people did. We had worked with. I had worked with ciphers when I first got into the search because
Right.
of my background. I had first worked with ciphers. We did, as a matter of fact, we have a video on the keyword, and I cited it as treasures for almost the same reasons as you did, and the uniqueness of the fact that there are two, four letters twice in the word, et cetera, et cetera. And I started working it from a cipher perspective and just couldn't, I had 95 different iterations of trying to get it to work and just
Right.
couldn't, and didn't feel comfortable that ciphers inside the poem was a solution. So, what do we got?
Okay, well, Jeremy Milstead wants to know from the whole panel, what are your thoughts on the subjective action of put in? And I was thinking a little bit about that as I was studying for this, that put in below the home of Brown, with home representing a space or a part of a home, uh, a room, so that perhaps there's a cliff face with an indentation, you're parking underneath an overhang, or there is some sort of indentation in the wall that when the wind goes by, it's making sort of a low moaning sound, and that has to do with onomatopoeia and that sort of thing. But that's what I'm thinking when I hear put in, is to stop, put your car there, or get out.
Hmm. Very interesting. So, what was it that they wanted to do? I got so interested in your.
They just want to know what you think it means when they say put in.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, we know it's a nautical term. We know you put in, if you put in a boat,
Yeah.
if you put in a raft. I don't know if Forrest Fenn would have wanted people to walk across a river or a stream, no matter how much water is in there, just because of the danger factor. We know some of the problems that have happened. So I don't know if put in is referring to the nautical term or not. I like what Shelley said. It could just mean park your car. It could mean put in either a turnaround or a turnabout, maybe a scenic outlook. I wonder if maybe he used the term put in, just meaning to stop and then look for the remainder of the clues.
Yeah, I come from a sailing background, and the phrase "put in" has a very specific meaning. When you tell someone you're going to be putting in someplace, it means you're going to be anchoring for a period of time. It could be for the night, and the two choices are, of course, you can anchor in the open, or you could go into a marina. So what you say is, "I'm going to put into the." Marina in Annapolis. So for me, it's always been the idea that if I was in a vehicle, I would come to a place where I would stop, put in below the home of Brown. So I wanted to say thank you very much to Mark Conway for contributing $20 to our project. Mark, that entitles you at least to one question that should get answered. He didn't put one down, but I do really want to let Mark know that we appreciate the contribution to our project. It helps us make investments in things like this technology, because now we have to pay, $14 a month for the Zoom account to be able to do this. So there are some costs associated with doing this. They're not a lot of costs, but that $20 will help us for another month. Mark, thank you for that. So any of you that want to take advantage of Super Chat by contributing and not asking a question, or contributing and asking a question, just scroll all the way down to the bottom of the window. You'll see an emoji symbol, and you'll see a Super Chat symbol. And when you click on that, it opens up a Super Chat and a Super Chat blue bar. You click on that, and you get the symbol to sign a Super Chat, as you'll see in just a minute. And then this ball right here on the low end will contribute $1, and on the high end, I think it's like $500. So if any of you are feeling very very generous tonight, just push that little ball all the way over to the right. So, but again, thank you. How do I get out of this? Okay, get out of the Super Chat.
John Murphy is asking Cal Lazars, how far do you believe the treasure is to the home of Brown? 100 feet, 200 feet, maybe more than a mile?
from the home of Brown after we've already done the distance of too far to walk. Uh, I would say 100 feet. I think it's relatively close. I think when you're at the home of Brown, you should be looking for the blaze pretty quickly. It's just a guess on my part at this point, but I think you're halfway there distance wise, more than halfway there when you're at the correct home of Brown.
I think we agree. One of the conclusions that we came to in our research was Fenn has said that searchers have been within 200 feet. We think that the 200 feet is relative to the put in below the home of Brown, and they either didn't stop there or they continued going on. So I noticed. Let me get it. Are
Two
you
more
keeping
super
up with all
chats.
this? Wow,
Super
Zinger
chat.
and Axarbin, Nebraska backwards because I can't say. Zinger, AGK, can we go through all the mentions of Brown in the book? I think that would be very informative. Okay, I have to open up my document again, and I will do that. I'll give you a sense of where they are. I won't spend a lot of time on it. You'll have to work with that on your own. But meantime, let's do some other things. First of all, let me say thank you very much to Zinger for his $10 contribution, and Nebraska backwards. Thank you for that contribution. That is very generous, and we truly appreciate you guys doing that for us. So, like I said, this inspires us to do more of these. We've got the technology kind of put together now, and it'll enable us to do more of these. And tonight we asked Mike if he'd like to join us on other of these live chats in the future, and he agreed. And we're very grateful for that because we think he brings a whole new perspective to the search for us, and we'd like him to be here when you guys have his questions. So Shelley, why don't you and Mike work on the questions for right now, and I'm going to open up my Microsoft Word so I can answer that question for the folks.
Well, I have a question from Ken Cowell. Do any of you have any confidence in the home of Brown being associated with the location, the original home of Molly Brown's husband in Leadville, which no longer exists? I'm going to let Mike take that.
Hi, Ken. How are you? I don't know with it being Molly Brown. I don't know if Brown is a person. I think it's an easy assumption to make because it's capitalized that it would be somebody's last name. And I guess that person is famous enough that maybe, down the road people would know. But these, I would think that these clues that he's put into this poem are going to be around for 100 years, maybe 200 years. He mentioned that a little bit, that maybe the clues are going to change, the geographic locations will change a little bit. So I really think it might be more of a geographic location, meaning a geographic structure of some kind than an actual person. But it's possible. I mean, it is possible. I I think it might be more the name of an actual landmark somehow, or the name of a structure. I mean, there's Brown Canyon, Brown Lake, Brown Creek. Those are possibilities. So I don't really think it's a person's name, but if I was where I think where warm waters halt and there was a structure named after a person, I think I would change my mind real quick.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to do. It's hard to make that association without making the association with a structure. And Fenn has said more than once it's not associated with a structure. So I think that's the hard part to do. That somebody had one for AGK that John Murphy. Can I answer? I saw it go by. Oh no, I'm sorry. I saw it go by, and it was the question that we answered in last week's facts FAQs. Okay. Why don't you answer this one, Mike? Toby or Mike, and I think you can actually answer it for me. So, Toby or Mike, if you were to find the treasure, would you donate it to the Smithsonian? So, okay, you guys do that. I'm going to open up this document, then I'm going to come back.
You want me to take that, Shelley, or you want to take it first?
Well, I think everybody should already know what we're doing with the treasure is selling it at auction anonymously. So, no.
Liquidation. I would
Liquidation.
definitely, I would definitely want to sell part of it. I know for me, I would want to keep part of it. Would want to keep part of it for my two boys. I would want to give some of it away to certain friends and family, just to have an actual gold coin or the different items. So I don't know if I could sell the whole chest with all the contents. I know I would sell part of it because I want bills paid and I want a college education and things set up. So for me, I would definitely sell part of it. I might do more of a piece by piece type thing. And if that means I don't get as much as selling the whole thing, then so be it. But I would need to save some of those pieces. They'd be very special. So I would want to hang on to some of them.
Very good. We have another super chat from Deborah Jensen, $10. Thank you, Deborah.
Wow.
Go ahead and make sure you ask a question.
All right. I'm sorry.
Did you have something?
Well, what I was going to do is I was going to go through those 7
Okay.
locations of the home of the Brown and Thrill the Chase. Okay, so take out your notebooks. I'm going to do this quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this particular topic. You ready?
And I'll see if what you got matches what I have. Tony.
Okay. So the person who said there were 7 matches, if you include the Brown and the poem, is correct. Okay, here we go. Page 27, the second complete paragraph. Sliding, and I mean even that the rusty old iron thing marked the tail of my breeches pretty good with a heavy brown color. Okay, first one. Second one, page 32, my Spanish toy factory. First paragraph, like most kids my age, I was always hungry, but I didn't take a brown bag to school. Third one, page 38. 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph, first paragraph from the bottom. So mom would trim the edges off several slices of homemade bread, then cut the pieces into fourths. When they came brown out of the oven, she'd put butter and different kinds of homemade jams on them. Fourth one, page 48, first paragraph, last couple of sentences. What I really hated to wash were the giant kettles used for making brown gravy. They smell truly, the smell truly assaulted my sensitivities, and that's why I don't eat brown gravy anymore. So that was number 4 and 5. And then page 70, last paragraph down at the bottom. I knew my college education had ended, so I hurried back to my barracks, packed my extra shirt and toothbrush in a brown paper sack, left my beautiful cadet uniform, etc. And then the last one, of course, number 7, is the put in below the home of Brown in the poem. Okay? Hope you got those notes.
And I will say that almost every instance of the word brown, it has to do with the color. Brown bag, the brown color on his pants, the brown gravy twice, the brown paper sack. The only one that didn't would be, I guess, browning out of the oven. But you could even say they turned to the color brown.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's possible the hint is the color brown. I'm just not sure why he would have capitalized it in the poem if that's the case. I guess maybe to draw attention to it.
So I see, Shelley, do you have anything
Yes.
for me right now?
Well, Eric Schmidt says a lot of folks think brown relates to brown trout. It should be noted that they are not native to the United States.
Right. They were imported from Europe, I think Germany, I think.
And here's my take real quick. Here's
Yeah,
my
go
take
ahead.
on the whole brown trout. The whole poem can be read from looking at it as a fisherman, which we know Forrest Fenn was, right?
Right.
Put in nautical term, brown could be brown trout. In the cold, you could be in the water, warm waters. I think all of that is a distraction. I think he put those purposely, he worded the clues purposely that you would make you think of that, but I really don't think that has anything to do with the solution. Just my own take on it, but I think he's tried to distract people just a little bit
Yeah.
with those terms.
Yeah. He could very well be. I mean, it's easy enough to do it. I noticed that I missed a Deborah Jensen question, and I think she was one of our super chatters. Did anybody see
Yes.
that?
I have not, but
I
I
don't
see
see the
one from Mark
question.
Conway.
Oh, well, let's answer Mark's.
Okay,
because-
Mark says if you look up put in, it can also mean to bring into a certain state. Do you think that it relates to the Borders story?
I'm not making the connection.
Because of the state being on the border of a state,
Yeah.
borders.
Mark, I haven't actually thought about that connection. I have to look at it. I think it's interesting in the sense that it's an interesting connection. I just haven't made it, so I don't know what I think about it just yet. So,
And I've never heard that put in is a term pilots would use, but
So-
is that true?
somebody earlier mentioned that helicopter pilots use it.
Oh, okay.
So I've never heard a fixed wing pilot use it. I know a lot of them. They don't put in. They come in for, put in is very not. I think you were right with your first, based on my experience. I mean, I sailed for most of my life, so when somebody uses a phrase "put in," to me it's a sailing term. What else you got for us, Shel?
Well, all I saw from Deborah Jensen was, do you think we only need the use of the capital B? I'm not sure what that means.
Well, Deborah, the implication of your question is that the capital B would then would ensure that the word brown is a proper noun. I don't know necessarily that and that brings the question up. Somebody brought up earlier about Molly Brown or places named after individuals or structures named after individuals. So I have never believed that it was associated with a person. That is, it's a proper noun referring to an individual. We got to our conclusion about it being a form of an indication of respect for Eric Sloan. Rather than it being necessarily a proper noun representing someone.
Here's a clarification she put a little bit later. It says, think of the B only. So I think she means, can you just use the letter B instead of the word brown?
No, my take on
like
that.
Bravo or brown.
Oh, I see. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, my take on that is if that's Forrest Fenn's intention, how are we supposed to know that?
Yeah.
Somewhere in Thrill of the Chase, he would have to give us a hint
Right.
alluding to that, because I'm never going to get that on my own. So you would have to show me somewhere in the Thrill of the Chase where he's giving us that hint for me to take that seriously, I guess, or to actually try and put it into play with the solution.
Shel, before you ask me the next one, I want to address Dale. Dale asked, did you say that try the wheel was a clue? Holy shiitake. I did not. I've never been a fan of the try the wheel solution. So do not leave the room saying Toby thinks the try the wheel is cool.
Samuel Smith says, the most basic and simplest meaning of put in is a change of conveyance, i.e. riding to walking, park and walk.
Well, that's interesting because many of us believe that the put in is the point at which you get out of the car after you're taken in the canyon down and you transition with your backpack or in his case, his treasure to the point at which the treasure is hidden somewhere past, no place for the meek, heavy loads of water's high and the blaze. So that to me sounds like a far more rational definition than anything I've heard to this point for put in. Could you read that again, Shel, please? Did you lose it?
Oh, Samuel Smith. The most basic and simplest meaning of put in is a change of conveyance, i.e. riding to walking, park and walk.
Is that, Samuel, is that a citable definition or is that your opinion? And I'm not questioning it. I'd like to know whether or not there's a citation associated with that because I'd like to find it. I think that's very interesting and credible. And I'm hoping it's not just your opinion.
I have a question for Mike from William Zimmerman. I'm really intrigued by your interaction with James Fry. Did you find anything out about the caller or the motivation behind the clues?
Yeah, that was something. Somebody was trying to put one over on me. For anybody that doesn't know, I got an email from James Fry's assistant of all people who said he wanted to talk to me. I gave him my phone number. Maybe I shouldn't have. And I proceeded to have a 2-hour conversation with James Fry, except it wasn't the real James Fry. This was somebody who claimed to have interviewed Forrest Fenn over 3 days and had some information they wanted to get out to all the viewers of the blog. I have not talked to that person since then. I don't know what their motivation was, other than maybe to get me on the phone. Maybe they thought they wouldn't have been able to talk to me otherwise. But I did talk to the real James Fry. I tweeted him the video, and he emailed me the next day and said, "This is the real James Fry, and I'll FaceTime with you to prove it." I knew it was him because it was from his company. And he knows who the person is. He actually did a reverse lookup on the phone call. And I said, no harm, no foul. He just said, let him know if it happens again. Anybody else claims to be him. So whoever that was out there, please don't do that again. It was a nice little joke. And I did make a vlog on it because I thought it was funny. But yeah, there was no harm, no foul.
And for those of
Get
you,
me. As long as you know, he didn't get me. He got me for maybe the first 10 minutes, but that's
yeah.
it.
Well, as he was describing all these clues that he was sharing with you,
Right.
it was so earth shaking. You'd go like, "Holy moly! I've got to change my whole strategy here." If Forrest really said these, and then you realize Forrest wouldn't say that.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, for those of you that don't know James Fry, he's a bit notorious. Back in the mid 2000s, he wrote a book called A Million Little Pieces, and it was about his struggle with drug and alcohol abuse, and it was very heartfelt. And he presented it as a autobiography to the extent that it became so popular that Oprah picked up on it and made it one of her picks for the book club. And then soon after that, Oprah found out from someone that it was mostly fiction, right? So it was partly true, but mostly fiction, and that he had quite a checkered past. And she invited him sometime around 2005, 2006. She invited him back on her show with his attorney, and Oprah did a ass whooping, for lack of a better way to describe it. So it wasn't a good time for him. I imagine he's come out of it since, and he's written other books that I think have been closer to what people were hoping he would write. So.
And the tie-in to me is that 3 of his books, he had a treasure hunt embedded in his books, which
Yeah.
I had done a vlog on. So I assume that's how this person thought he had a way in with me. So
Hey, Bill, there you are. Bill Gorman says there are other clues better than brown or warm waters that get to the area easier. Well, thank you, Bill. Nice to see you. There's Mark's contribution. Oh, I'm way up here. Man, I'm way behind you guys. So I noticed that Nebraska gave us quite a bit of a contribution. Did he have a question to go along with that? Nebraska, the reason I say your name, Nebraska, is because I can't say the backwards version.
I haven't seen any questions. He's made some statements, but I haven't seen any questions.
Okay.
We have a question from Dale Richards. Isn't there any places where all the browns you mentioned apply, including a real home of brown?
All the Browns who mentioned?
I guess you.
Oh, the lignite. You mean in terms of the lignite deposits? Didn't Dale ask about the?
Browns.
So I mentioned other ones. I think like everything else in the poem, you have to come up. It can't be generic. It can't be a solution to whatever the clues that he's given us. Has to be very specific, and it has to be identifiable. It has to be tangible. It has to be sensible in the fact that in what I mean by sensible, in the way that you have to sense its existence, and you have 5 senses, so it could be any one or more of those senses that prove its existence. But I think it has to be very specific. I don't think it could be generically brown. I don't think it's where the grizzly, the area in which the grizzlies populate Montana. That's not specific enough for me.
Mike, do you have any comment?
Yeah, I think it needs to be something long term. When Forrest wrote the poem, the clues are going to have to be there for quite a while. He said it might not be found for hundreds of years. So I don't think he's going to use temporary placeholders for the clues.
So, somebody was talking about, let's see, where did I see it? Something, they referred to Cynthia's book. Cynthia, pretty much in her book, she wrote that the home of brown is not associated with a structure. And I think that was after Fenn had actually announced that the home of brown was not associated with a structure because people were digging up outhouses. Home of brown, get it? Blah, blah, blah. So.
Did he actually say Homo Brown is not a structure? I know he said the treasure chest is not associated with a structure. I thought he just said Homo Brown is not. It has nothing to do with the outhouse.
Was it very specifically an outhouse?
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought
then
what he said is that the treasure is not associated.
I do remember that he said the treasure is not associated with the structure. I remember the comment about the whole people were digging up outhouses, and he made a comment. Gave a negative hint not to mess with outhouses because you're not going to find anything there.
But again, if Homo Brown is a structure, how long is that going to last?
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, so Shelley.
Yes.
I'm at 7:54. So what I want to start doing is wrapping up. I promised that we keep this to an hour, but I also want to give Mike time to talk about his treasure hunt. So, Mike, why don't you take it from here and talk about your treasure hunt on your YouTube channel and your Facebook page, right? Well, just tell folks about it.
Yeah, so Kalazar's Grand Adventure is the name of it. Idea I came up with. So far, we've been having a lot of fun. We've got about 50 players that are actively playing. Where some of them have gotten to puzzle 4, but most people seem to be stuck on puzzle 3. And I'm going to make those people wait for a clue here a couple minutes. If you're interested in playing, you can go to Kalazar's Grand Adventure on Facebook, or you can email me, kalazars@gmail.com. I'll give you all the details. Basically, they're YouTube videos that are private. So you're only going to get the link if you join. The cost is $5. You're paying for the content of the videos that I created. And we're having a lot of fun. The first 6 people are going to be able to pick those 6 books. I was just wondering, anybody that's in the chat, is there anybody that's actually playing the puzzle that's involved? If you could post it or not, and maybe give your thoughts on what you think of the puzzles so far. I created the puzzles. There might be some exceptions. There might be some surprises for people toward the end. But puzzle 3 seems to be tripping people up a little bit. So I told everybody in my Facebook group that I would give a clue here on a Gypsy's Kiss Live. And that clue is that for puzzle 3, the solution is 26 letters, no numbers. A lot of people are submitting numbers for a solution. Solution is 26 letters. That's all I'm going to say. That's the only clue I'm going to give for that particular puzzle. Some people have already figured it out, but not many. So I hope you guys play. I hope you have fun. That was the whole point of it, was to have fun.
Very good. That's a lot of fun. I really like that treasure of yours. So anything else you want to say before we start closing up?
Just thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. I'd love to be back. I think you guys do a great job dissecting the poem and the book and coming up with theories. And it's great that you have the chat and that you let everybody else get involved as well. So whenever you want to have me back, I'm ready.
We like that part of it. We think the concept of the chat and people being able to participate in all of this. We like that idea, and we think it's a lot of fun, and we learn from it. We're not here to steal anybody's ideas, and I feel like we put out a lot more of our ideas than we expect in return. We don't expect anybody's solutions in return. We like sharing our ideas, and we hope that the treasure is found, and we hope that one day we get to see someone announce that the treasure is found, because I think that would be really cool, even if it's not us. So, but we're going to do everything we can to find it. So, Shelley, any last words before we sign off here?
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming tonight and sharing with us. And we are going to have this video online. The chat will be attached to it, so you can always come back and read through it. When Toby and I came up with this idea, we wanted an alternative to the usual forum discourse. We want something positive. We want something where people feel it's okay and safe to share with each other, and that your ideas have merit, just as much merit as ours do. We've all done research. We all have our own take on things, and it's really great that we can get together and crowdsource a solution to this poem. And because I don't think that any one person is going to figure it out. It's going to take a village. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. That was very nicely said. So, first of all, Mike, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us. We look forward to doing this again, and we'd like to invite you back for whenever we do this. I'm not sure. We're going to analyze kind of what went on tonight, see how it went, and plan another one. And we'd love to have you back. And joining us in the conversation. I think, like I said earlier, you bring a whole new perspective on the Forrest Fenn treasure, and we love hearing it, and we like you, and we like your little monkeys.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks everybody that joined in the chat. It's been a lot of fun.
We do appreciate it. So a couple of things, folks. Make sure that you give us a thumbs up on this video so that we get some nice rankings for it with YouTube. They like when you give us the thumbs up. In addition to that, if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please subscribe. We're working to get our subscription numbers up so that YouTube is finally, I think, kind of taking us seriously, that we have that we have something going on here. So thumbs up and a subscription would help if you're not already subscribed. The other benefit to a subscription is if you click the notifications bell whenever we go live, you'll get an email or text notification that we are going live. So for the rest of the week or so, tomorrow, of course, at 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, we're gonna do the Forrest Fenn Memoirs Book Club, and tomorrow is Chapter 4, Jumpstarting the Learning Club. Didn't say that right. Jumpstarting the Learning Curve. I know that Shelley's been working on her analysis here for a couple of days, so you should look forward to that. We're not going to do anything over the weekend. Our next regular programming is on Tuesday of next week, and I've decided to use that as an opportunity to talk about drones. I know that not everybody in the chase has an interest in drones, but I do want to talk about how we use them, some of the restrictions associated with them, what you can do with them, and what you can expect from one of the park rangers at Yellowstone National Park if you should walk in there with a drone. In addition to that, I don't know whether I mentioned to you that I had been working to acquire a new drone. I currently have a Phantom 3. I've had Phantoms, DJI Phantoms the whole time ever since I started with drones back in 2012 or 13 when there was no stability and no cameras. But I ordered a new DJI Mavic Air, and DJI sent me a text today that it's going to be in either tomorrow or Friday. So if you join us on Tuesday, we'll have, I've always wanted to do one of these and never had a good reason for it. Mike gets to do them all the time because people send his kids packages. So I've always wanted to do an unboxing. So if you join us on Tuesday, I'm going to do an unboxing of my new Mavic Air. And then we'll do a presentation on, drone regulations, especially as they apply to the park. And then we'll open Q&A on Tuesday. Okay, so we'll love seeing you there. Even if you don't have an interest, come on by. It's an open Q&A, so you can ask questions other than those don't have anything to do with drones. Okay, so it is 1 after 8. We promised we'd make this an hour long. We promise if Mike will join us, we'll do it again sometime soon and have one of these night times event. We really appreciate all you guys being here. We love our community. We love the contributions you make to us. And by the way, I do want to thank the folks who did go to our paypal.me account. That's paypal.me/Gypsy Kiss and made contributions, because those contributions helped pay for the new drone. So if I hadn't said thank you before this, I really do want to thank you, because it was your contributions that helped me to be able to afford the new drone. Okay. Any last comment before we leave for the night, Mike?
I volunteer to take your old one if you don't know what to do with it. Other than that, thanks everybody. I'll see you next time.
And Shelley?
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Mike. We had a really great time, and I'm so glad that this worked out really well and everybody showed up this evening. And I think 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night works out really well for a lot of people. So I'm glad it worked out so well. And thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks for joining us this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We really appreciate it. As I said, we love our community. We hope the feeling is mutual on your part. And we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock Mountain Standard Time for Forrest Fenn Book Club. Good night, all.
Bye.